Yes, welcome back to Rick's Other Place. And there's one of the delightful dog family who live in the background. Bow wow. Yes, here we are in Rick's palatial music room for another episode of Rick's podcast, complete with, two dogs friends today. This is Moo. Is that right?
No, that's Puff.
Oh, that's Puff, yeah.
Puff came from China.
Okay.
Puff came from a restaurant in China, and it's not a joke, where she was on the menu.
That's terrible.
And we had 7 hours to get her out, and it took 7 months to get her back here, and she's an absolute little sweetheart. And you mentioned Moo. Moo's just come in. I just hope they don't all sit at the same time.
Completely. That would be a bit of difficult.
Right.
And actually playing the piano would be quite difficult because, of course, they're all down by your feet. So I hope you don't need to use those pedals. A question has arisen from Keith, who's on Twitter/X. Keith Nelson. Dear Rick, I'm a big fan of The Who. I've read that you know them or you knew them quite well. I'd love to know what Keith Moon was really like, especially as it seems like you had a few nights out with him and survived, says Keith Nelson. True or not?
Yeah, it is true. I mean, John was my real bosom buddy. I mean, we got on great, John and I. He was just had the driest sense of humour. It's so tragic that we lost him, because if anybody should have written a book about The Who and Keith Moon, it's John. Very dry sense of humour, very funny man. And I thought the world of John. Now, Roger, of course, was also great fun, but a little bit more serious than, and same with Pete. Moon, he was Moon the Loon, as they called it. I mean, Keith was a kind heart. He had a wonderfully kind heart on him. He'd do anything for anybody. He had no semblance of looking after anything, money or his. Yeah. He was a complete loony in every respect. And my favourite story probably about Keith, I've got a load of Keith stories. We did go out quite a lot. Shortly after they did Tommy, there was an orchestral version of Tommy.
Oh, really?
Which was absolutely sensational, which was with the London Symphony Orchestra.
Wow.
Lou Reisner produced Tommy with the London Symphony Orchestra, David Measham conducting, and the English Chamber Choir,
right.
Which is how I got to know the English Chamber Choir and David Measham. And we performed it live at what was then the Rainbow, and with lots of guest singers. So Mooney and I became great friends. And I was down in Australia. I think I was doing Journey, I'm not sure. So this would have been 74 by now. And Keith was down there because they took the orchestral version of Tommy to Australia as well.
Right.
So we happened to be there at the same time. I'm in my hotel room. I honestly can't remember where, but it was somewhere in Australia. I got a phone call. Mooney. Hello, Keith. We're both here. I said, yeah, right, great. And he went, look, I've got a night off tomorrow and so have you. So he said, fancy a meal? I went, yeah. He said, look, there's this fantastic restaurant, and he named the restaurant, I can't remember now. Right. He said, it's really, really good. He said, dinner's on me. He said, but you'll have to book it. I said, why? He said, because I can't get in anywhere. Such was his reputation. I said, all right. So anyway, I phone the restaurant and I book it in my name for two people. Keith meets me at my hotel. We get a taxi to the restaurant. Fantastic, I mean, unbelievably posh and swanky. And we arrived at the door, and there was the maitre d' at the door. Hello, Mr. Wakeman, lovely to see you. He took one look at Mooney, and I thought he was going to soil himself. And I said, you're my guest, Mr. Mooney. And I could see him thinking, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then he thought, well, maybe it'll be all right if Rick's. So he said, this way, please. And he took us to a big room, to a table right over in the far corner, where we sat down over two. And throughout the meal, I have to say, Mooney was just unbelievably polite to everybody. He was polite to the waiters and waitresses, commenting on how great the food was. There were a few people at adjoining tables that sort of smiled and asked for his autograph. I know and mine, and that. So we did that. So you could see the whole atmosphere visibly calmed down, and the maitre d' was obviously extremely happy. it was one of those places, like a lot of places you used to do, which is where you don't get your bill at the table, you pay as you go out, you sort it out.
Right.
'Cause it's classed as vulgar if they bring it to the table.
Right.
So it came to pay, and Mooney said, it's on me. And I went, we'll see about that, Keith, because we'd drunk a lot. So he said, after you. So we got up from the table. I started walking between the tables, and I suddenly heard this clattering behind. And I turned around, and there was Mooney on our table. He climbed on the chair, he's on the table, and he's kicking everything off. Then to get to where to go out, he didn't come back down, he went via the tables. So he's now walking across as many tables as he can get. Carnage. There's stuff, food and cups, and I'm now at the other end going, oh, God. Now, the interesting thing is, this is human nature. You would think that if you think about it, looking back, that the waiters or whoever it was, they would stop him getting off the next.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They just went to where he'd just been. And so it was like a scene out of a Benny Hill show. And he finally got down. He had this toothy grin, Keith. So he came at the front of the maitre d's desk where you had to pay, and Mooney just jumped off the last table and he went, run! So we got out and we ran, and we split up. I found a cab and went back to my hotel. On arrival at the hotel, there were the police.
Yeah.
Because of course they'd got my address from the.
Yeah. Because you'd booked it.
They said, "Would you come with us, please?" "Hey, you come with us? Thank you. We've got a few little things to sort out here." Oh God! Because it's now like about 1 a.m.
Yeah.
So I get to they said, "We already have Mr. Moon in custody." Oh God! So we get to the police station where Mooney's sitting there, toothy grin, and he said, "Bill will be along in a minute to sort it out." Bill was Bill Kirbysley, his manager. So we went, "Oh, okay, fine." So we're sitting there. Bill Kirbysley finally comes along, pays whatever it costs, for the damage and the bills, which is obviously 10 times more than it should have been.
Yeah.
And we're let off with a warning. And
Good Lord.
and Bill said, "Rick, you're both here for a little while longer. Don't go out again, either of you." So
I've met Bill Kirbysley. He's a bit terrifying, actually, isn't he?
yeah. So that was one Mooney story. I've got a plethora of Mooney stories. But
Well, good to know that he had a kind heart, though.
he had a wonderful
underneath
kind
all of that.
He was very kind to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But he was a maniac, an absolute maniac, and he
One
was
of a kind, huh?
He was rock and roll personified. I mean, I know for a fact that he used to go around London in the early 70s with Viv Stanshall from the Bonzo Doodah.
He was a bit rock and roll as well, wasn't he?
Oh, not much. And they would go around dressed as Hitler and Goebbels. And they both had fire extinguishers. They used to go into bars and clubs and pubs and just spray everybody. I mean, things that you would never get away with today.
Well, you probably couldn't really get away with it then, to be fair.
No, that's true. And they didn't most of the time.
Good Lord. Viv Stanshall, there's a name.
Well, he was a good friend, Viv.
Yeah.
He was a good friend.
Great artist. Goodness me. Well, Keith, Keith Nelson, Keith Moon, your namesake was, as it turns out, just what you expected him to be.
Yep.